religion in tangent with colonialism, imperialism. I mean, like, it's just they go hand in hand. Like,
So you're saying it's built into religion?
it's not built into religion, but it is wrongly interpreted from religion. More specifically, Judeo-Christian values.
It's always Judeo-Christian.
Christianity, Judaism, they have great frameworks for theocracy because they both subjugate a group of people
Right.
while setting apart people that it describes as essentially saved, right? Or righteous in a sense. And so anybody who's in that religion, it is now your responsibility to look at anybody who isn't religious as needing to be subjugated or needing to be brought into the fold. So mix that in with a little bit of just humanity being humanity and prone to being greedy and prone to being lustful and prone to being all of those sorts of things. And those things become utilized as tools for the spreading of subjective truth.
So what you're saying is because if you mix a religion with humanity and this humanity or this part of humanity is patriarchal, they're the ones who decide like who gets subjugated.
Yeah, they benefit greatly from that.
Okay, so they're using it. What you're saying is they're using it.
Yeah, because religion's source is God,
right?
And you can't supersede God.
Yeah, no one can.
And so I mean, replace God with whatever deity you want to believe in. Like that's what's used to maintain morality or to enact morality.
Right.
To enact order. And yeah, it's very easy for men to come under that and be like...
So it's used as a tool?
Yes, a weapon. More like a weapon than a tool, yeah.
Okay.
And so that's just one of the many factors, you know?
Yeah, because the United States is built on like a Christian like framework to a large degree.
Yes, very much so.
Like it's literally built into the fucking Constitution, but like in the way...
Because they believed what initially? That they had the right to worship freely. So they believed that they were like God ordained to break free from the British Empire and colonize these lands.
But also the people that came from Britain, they were all believers of Christianity. So why did these group of people feel like they had to leave?
Oh, they were Catholics.
They were Catholics. Okay.
They were Catholics.
They're Catholic.
So you have Protestantism and Catholicism, which at the time was maybe 100, 200 years after the birth of Protestantism when we have the founding of America.
Right.
This is only like, I don't even know if it's 200 years after the Reformation, so the birth of Protestantism. So it's still very fresh, and you have these people now who believe God in this way, who believe in the Bible this way, versus these other so-called Christians. You know, they're Catholics. Catholic is just, I think it's just Greek or Latin for Christian, or universal. It means universal.
So for someone who doesn't know, who are the first Christians? The Christians or the Catholics?
Well, it depends on who you ask. Ask a Catholic and they will say Catholic. Ask a Christian and they will say Christian. Looking at this from a like scholarly perspective,
yeah,
the first Christians would have been Jews, which makes no sense because Jews are Jewish.
Right.
They believe in the Torah, but that is what Christianity is. It's the telling of Christ. And what we learn from that narrative is that, Jesus took disciples, aka Jews. Jesus himself was Jewish. And
a Palestinian Jew.
Yeah. And after that, after his ascension, after his death and ascension, according to the narrative, he then gives a commandment to his disciples, go into the world and tell them about me. And so from that point onward, that's where most Bible scholars will look at that and be like, okay, that's Christianity. That's the birth of Christianity. When Jesus ascends and then releases his disciples unto the world to teach his teachings, that's Christianity. That's the beginning. But the word Christian isn't found anywhere in the Bible.
Yeah,
nowhere in the Bible, nowhere in the Old Testament or the New Testament is the word Christianity or Christian found. That develops after tradition. So hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years after the biblical narrative was written, which in itself was written 60 to 50 years after the death of Jesus, is when you get actual written pieces of New Testament Bible.
That has the word Christian.
No, that does not have the word Christian. That just talks about Jesus.
Shit.
And shares that story. So hundreds of years after that then develops into order because that gets spread to Rome and Rome hears about it. And Rome realizes that, or one Roman emperor at least, was it Augustus or someone? I think maybe it was Augustus who made Rome like officially Catholic because he read it and learned from it. It was like, this is a really good way to subjugate people. And he became the Catholic Church. Like it just as religion began to become institutionalized from Judaism to Christianity to Catholicism, that institution became so powerful because the message they were preaching was so easy to misconstrue for your own political gain, for your own political power.
Right.
It's easy to manipulate people with religion. It's easy to control people with religion.
It seems to be that, like, for most religions, they're meant to be, like, used in a very, like, communal way.
Yes.
You know, they weren't meant to be, like, as you said, institutionalized.
Yes. Christianity is no exception.
Okay.
It's no exception.
Yeah.
It's very communal. That's why the modern day American evangelical is a complete paradox
You're about to say something. Go ahead.
to what Christianity stands for. A lot of the reasons why we hate, I'm going to use hate because I really do hate so many of these people who claim Christ,
Mm-hmm.
but they're just politically Christian. Like they don't know anything about the Bible.
What does being politically Christian mean?
It is the result of being raised in yet another generation of tradition in your family that we have just always been Christian or Catholic and will continue to be Christian or Catholic. And you were raised under a set of values. You were raised under a set of morals. And you were raised into a worldview that teaches you this is what is valuable in life. This is what you must do to be saved. This is what you must do to prove that you are saved. So that then becomes your lifestyle, your culture. And if anything outside of your lifestyle or culture is not that,
Yeah.
then it is bad. So you have the rise of polarity, you have the rise of the binary,
Yeah.
and where things become much more black and white because a line is clearly drawn through it. This becomes politicized. Like no president in American history has ever not been Christian.
True.
Every single one of them has claimed Catholic or Christian,
True.
including Donald Trump.
True.
Which could not be the furthest from that ideology.
Mm.
Maybe next to Kennedy. I don't know, because Kennedy had like, Marilyn Monroe or Bill
Yeah.
Clinton with Monica Lewinsky. But anyways,
Okay, so I think you're touching on something. So the people that were simply just raised on Christianity as like, I think what you're saying as like it was passed down as like a set of like family values derived from Christianity, but they didn't read and preach the Bible. They didn't fully preach the Bible. So meaning like they didn't actually read it.
at least in the context in which it was written, because it's very easy to just call anybody a pastor.
Right. So they don't actively read it, and every part of religion has like some form of like congregation, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
To a degree, but on a very like communal level.
Yes.
You congregate, and as best as you can,
And you learn. Someone's got to teach you.
right?
Yeah.
And you try as best as you can. You practice those teachings in your daily life.
Yes.
Would you say the modern political Christian is that person that really didn't read the Bible, but they had the value passed down to them? So they, when asked, they will identify as religious and as Christian, but when you look at like a politician, whenever they're confronted with like actual information from the Bible, it's in direct contradiction to what they just said because they didn't read it.
Yeah.
Is that why that is what it is?
Yeah.
They will, as you said, they misconstrue the teachings of,
Yeah.
in this case, Christianity. So is that because they didn't actually read the Bible?
Yes and no. They're reading it.
Okay.
I mean, I'm without a doubt, I believe some of them are reading it.
I say that because it happens all the time. Someone will say like, they'll be like really, homophobic. And someone comes out of nowhere and says, actually, it says on this page, so on and so on. And the person who was just crashing out goes, really? It said that?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, bro. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah, because
it doesn't seem like these people are really
they read it under.
thoroughly reading the
They
Bible.
are reading it, but they're reading it through the lens in which they're told to see it.
Mm.
Which is why I said, like now in modern day, we have generation after generation of traditional Christianity as expressed in America. You have to remember that the United States was founded on these Christian values,
Yeah.
utilized by colonialism
As a weapon.
as a weapon to justify their presence, right? To justify the genocide of indigenous people, to justify all of the stealing of that land, to justify everything evil that America has ever done. That justification found its roots in its belief that their presence was God given or God ordained.
Google manifest destiny.
Exactly. Manifest destiny is exactly that, the expression that God has given them unclaimed land to subjugate and cultivate into cities, to culture. And so put Christianity in that type of culture for now almost 250 years, we're 249 years, I think, or something like that.
Yeah.
Do that, and it'll pair very well with politics. It'll pair very well with with American politics, or rather just capitalistic politics.
Right.
Capitalism, it again, it pairs very well because it is easy to misconstrue for your benefit. And who are people going to flock to? Are they going to flock to the people who are telling the easy messages, the ones that make you feel great? Or are you going to flock to the people who are telling you something you don't want to hear? Like, you don't want to go to church to feel shitty. You don't want to go to church to believe that you've got to make yourself fucking uncomfortable because you're supposed to love the guy who's Indian right there, or who's Mexican, or who's Asian. You're supposed to like that person that doesn't look like you, that does things that's not normal to you, that makes you feel uncomfortable. You have to face your discomfort, or as Christianity explains it, you have to face your own sinful nature and reflect the teachings of Christ, which are, I mean, look at what Jesus does. Look at how Jesus approaches those who are marginalized in those cities, in those communities. He does it in a way that angers most of the population, or if at least, sorry, not most of the population, because most of the population was following him. Who he angered was not most of the population, but those in power. Because it wasn't the people who wanted to kill Jesus, it was the Pharisees, the religious zealots, if you will, of Judaism.
Because Jesus was a rebel.
Israel was a theocracy. Ruled by who? By the religious leaders, aka the Pharisees. And so, they want to kill Jesus because he's preaching, you should care for the poor. You should care for the sick. You should care for the widow. He was preaching socialistic, communistic, essentially.
Oh shit, he was crashing out.
He was crashing out. Whatever you would call communism, socialism today, I mean, most of that has its overlap in the teachings of Christ. So
the true teachings of Jesus would have been socialism. What we now call socialism, what we now call communism.
But yes, because we have those labels, yes. But Jesus himself wouldn't call it that. He would call it the kingdom of God or whatever. But
different terminology.
Yes, different terminology. It's semantics essentially.
Yeah.
But
just the idea of like just not being an asshole.
Yeah, you're seeing these memes everywhere online right now, where everybody's poking fun right now at just conservatives because it's like we're pointing out everything that Trump is doing and then like just literally proving how unbiblical that is. It's like people will be talking about how like Republicans are rejoicing over mass deportations, and they'll be talking about like they'll literally be sharing passages from the Bible that are like totally not for that. So American Christianity is deeply politicized. It has its roots, not classical Christianity, or rather biblical Christianity, but yes, this unique culture of American Christianity, feeds into the patriarchy.